We got an unpopular take that Alabama will improve under Kalen DeBoer and be a consistent top 5 team. Now, to reset this whole prompt for you, I put on my Twitter page at JD Pakel. Get at me on there. What is your most unpopular college football take that you strongly believe in? All right, now this take, again, that Alabama will improve under Kalen DeBoer and consistently be a top 5 team. Now, that word improve is a little bit hard for me to get behind because look at Alabama and look what Nick Saban has done there. Like, I don't know if you're improving Alabama. I think you keep Alabama as that standard in college football or keep them in that top tier. Like, that would be a massive success. This is from our friend Dylan, who brought this unpopular take to the table. All right, so again, hard to improve on the Saban era. I think that would be a little bit of a difficult task. But to me, keeping them as a top 5 team with this massive transition of going from the greatest of all time as your head coach to a new individual in that head coaching seat, be very impressive. It'd be very impressive. So what would it take for them? On the long range of things, it would mean they have to recruit at a top 3 level. Okay, so if they're in that top 5 year in and year out consistently, Kalen DeBoer has cracked the recruiting code. Because Alabama, as good as they've been and as well coached as they've been and as many good players as they've had, yes, they develop. Yes, they're tremendous on the scheme point of things, but I cannot stress enough, like, Alabama has been Bama because they've acquired the best players at the high school level. Yes, they use the portal. There's no way around that, but the high school level has been the bread and butter for Alabama. And that was our question when Kalen DeBoer got the job. I don't question if he can coach ball. 104-12 as a head coach. You don't just luck into a record like that as a head coach, okay? So he can coach football, but can he compete on the recruiting trail with a Brian Kelly, with a Kirby Smart, with a Lane Kiffin, like those kind of guys that are elite at acquiring talent? Lane Kiffin obviously a little bit more so in the transfer portal side of things. That's going to be massive. That's going to be the key differentiator for them when it comes to being consistently in that top 5 year in and year out. A subplot within that is how they recruit the quarterback position. Now, granted, if you're recruiting at a top 3 level, you probably are adding a big-time quarterback or two any given class. But, like, Kalen DeBoer and his offense is such a quarterback-centric system, which we'll talk more about here in just a matter of moments. But you look at what he's done as a head coach, and I know Ryan Grubb called his offense, and he's now with the Seahawks. It's still a Kalen DeBoer offense. Let's not get it twisted. With the way that he operates offensively, they throw the ball. Over the course of the last 4 years, they have averaged north of 40 pass attempts a game. Translation, we need someone here that is going to spin the rock for us to run the system that we want to run. Now, on top of that, if they're successful for the course of the next however many years and they're consistently in the top 5, it means that defense was able to kind of ramp it up a little bit from previous Kalen DeBoer defenses. Now, let's make sure we're on the same page here. Kalen DeBoer, as much as he is held responsible for what that defense does, he's not coaching the defense. Like, same thing with Lincoln Riley is probably true about Kalen DeBoer. However you feel about the defense, you should feel about how he has hired his defensive staff. Like, Kalen DeBoer is not out there coaching up how to tackle and things like that. So you're responsible, but I think even more so you're responsible for who you hire to oversee the defense. Kane Womack going to be the guy for them at Alabama. The key number that we talk about here on this show to win the SEC, history tells us you got to be in that 22 points a game or less allowed. 22 points a game or less. 22 points a game is what 2019 LSU allowed per game. That was, I think, the highest margin over the course of the last 5 years. Most teams that win the conference are somewhere in the range of 19, 18 points a game allowed. So you got to be elite on defense. It's the price of admission. You want to score a lot for sure, and Kalen DeBoer is an offensive mind. There's no way around it. But you got to make sure that you turn the water off when you get into that conference. And there's going to be some offenses they have to play over the course of their time in the SEC. I say their time in the SEC. I'm talking about the new entries with Texas and Oklahoma. Like, you're going to have to beat those teams, whether it be in the regular season in the future or whether it be in the college football playoff. Ole Miss, like Tennessee, there's a lot of offensive juggernauts in this conference that are going to make you have to be able to turn off the water. There's no way around it. So if this happens this season, if Kalen DeBoer hits the ground running, they're a top 5 team, that would, I think, be kind of the way that you're able to promote this longevity that we're talking about here with Dylan. Because, I mean, with the way that they could be a team that's consistently in the top 5, I think there's a way where they, go 9-3 this year and they find their way to climb back and everyone sort of recalibrates their expectation around Kalen DeBoer, and he gets some time to make it, his kind of Alabama, and that's great, and that's one way to do it. But if they're successful this year, if they're able to have success this year and be a top 5 team, that would change the game around Alabama. Because we said it a lot when he first got the job, and they were, looking to retool the staff and the way that they were, trying to keep things going on the recruiting trail. This season for Alabama is going to be how recruits define Kalen DeBoer's Alabama, if that makes sense. Because Nick Saban has always been the face of the Crimson Tide. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, what are they going to be now that he's not there? Are they still going to be dominant defensively? Are they still going to be one of those teams that competes for hardware every single year? Like, what are they going to be now with Nick Saban not running the show? That's the ultimate question here. So if they're able to have success this year, you do a lot of damage control. Damage control is the wrong word. I think you alleviate a lot of nerves that people could potentially have around Alabama on the recruiting trail. Right? They're kind of in wait-and-see mode around Alabama, and if you go out and win the SEC in year one, or you get to Atlanta in year one, people say, okay, they're going to be just fine. Okay, Bama's still Bama in a lot of people's minds optically. And so when you look at this upcoming season, on one hand, you say if they get it done, yes, Nick Saban didn't leave that cupboard bare for them. Yes, there's still a lot of big-time players, even though the transfer portal did what it does when, guys end up transferring out. Like that's the reality that we all live with now in modern college football. You lost some players. But still, man, like everybody on that roster that committed out of high school to Alabama was a part of a top 3 class or better. So there's good talent on the roster. But on the other hand, let's be very clear about this. Kalen DeBoer and his success in 2024 for Alabama will be a different formula than what these guys signed up to play for. Like, Kalen DeBoer is not working with his own ingredients here. And there's probably no better example than that than Jalen Milroe and him playing quarterback this upcoming season. Because I'm a big Jalen Milroe fan. I think he's the right guy for Alabama. But his system that he ran last year and that he was successful in last year is very different than the system that Kalen DeBoer ran all the way to a national title appearance with Michael Penix Jr. We said it previously. 40 attempts a game is what Kalen DeBoer has historically done. Jalen Milroe is not a 40 attempts a game kind of quarterback. He threw 23 attempts a game last year, and he was phenomenal with his legs. Like, that's his MO. And so what I want to make sure we say, if they're successful this year, and Kalen DeBoer adapts his personnel, or adapts his style to his personnel, rather, and they have success with it, I think that would be incredible for the overall optics around Alabama. Because at that point, you say, okay, Kalen DeBoer isn't this guy that has to have exactly the right ingredients. Like, got to have everything in place. It's like he's winning with players that weren't necessarily guys he recruited. He's winning with someone else's pieces. Imagine what he does when he gets his guys. Imagine what he does when he recruits top-tier talent to fit his system. And at that point in time, I think that's the juice you would need to really get things rolling on the recruiting trail and keep things rolling how you want them to out there in Tuscaloosa. So will Bama avoid a drop-off long-term? I think this year is a massive tone setter for that. Not just because it's important to win ball games every single year with that Alabama logo. It's important because that's going to set the tone for acquiring talent in the future, which, of course, is kind of the name of the game right now in college football. So, great unpopular take. You can get at me on Twitter and Instagram at JD Patel and let me know your unpopular takes in college football that you strongly believe in. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.